don't even get me started on, is marriage a good deal? Like, it's if it was a business contract, you would look at it and go, well, I am not signing that. Like, this is not a good deal. Like, when did you come up with this? This is madness.
Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. Our guest today is going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story.
Hello, Dan. Good to be here. My name is Jonnie Jensen. I am the founder and the head coach at the High Value Man Project. I'm a dad of two, a divorced dad of two. But I've got the scars, got the wounds, but I'm happily through that and on the other side now. The High Value Man Project is a community and coaching program for dads. I mean, pretty much all ages, but it's generally kind of men hitting their late 30s into 40s that end up coming and looking for work like this. And we're here creating strong, resilient men who can create the lives that they want to live rather than one they feel stuck in.
And does that matter whether you're in the UK or the United States? You can kind of be anywhere and join this program?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got an awesome face-to-face thing coming up in November in Scotland, which is like the cold bit of Britain, right? We've got a fire walking weekend and breath work, and we're going to go and swim in some crazy cold loch, like a Loch Ness monster sort of stuff. But so that's going to require a little bit of money to jump on a plane. But other than that, most of it happens in our community. And on Zoom calls and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, do you want to take us through a little bit of what happened with your story and your divorce? And
yeah, totally. I mean, my story, you know that movie Goonies when Chunk gets kidnapped by the Fratellis, and then they're like, tell us everything, and he's like, when I was 5,
jumped all the way back.
Yeah. So you asked, Dan. You asked. No, but the skinny version is that my mum died when I was 9, and we were a cool family. My dad was a race car driver or a co-driver, and we got family in America and family in the UK, and my dad's a maverick anyway. So it was this whole kind of roller coaster of excitement, and with his involvement in the motor trade, there was money, and then boom, 9 years old, my mum's dead. And it wasn't until I was older that I was really able to look back and see what my dad had done during that time. The things that he'd done were good, the things that he'd done that were perhaps mistakes. And then I found myself in that situation as a married man with 2 little kids, going through a load of stuff, which we'll talk about now, and ending up in divorce. And then being able to look back at it and go, oh my God, now I can see what my dad went through. Like he was 41, he had a 7 and a 9-year-old. He was grieving for his dead wife. And then within a year, I had a new mum and she was pregnant. And so just like, whoa, this crazy adventure. And in my dad's way of dealing with things, it was all a bit like let's just spend our way to happiness kind of thing. And, if people connect with me, they'll hear my longer story, but it's kind of from Concord to Council House. And there's no right or wrong to it. But whilst we were having fun and going on holidays, I was upset and confused and lost and trying to be a cool teenager. And it was a good time. It was the late 80s and 90s. So no sooner had we got old enough to go out and drive and whatever, we were going raving and partying. And so it was like a lot of fun. But still there was this sort of undercurrent of, how do I manage a relationship? How do I fall in love? Like, what kind of a man am I? I don't really know. And that's sort of the basis, the foundation of actually how my marriage kind of went wrong. Because ultimately, when I fell in love with someone who I decided I was going to propose to after 6 weeks, there's some middle story there to how I decided that was a good idea. But basically a 4-year relationship that didn't work out. So I was like, well, I'm not going to wait 4 years this time. I'll just dive straight in. Footnote to anyone listening or watching, that's not a good idea, okay? It's like, it might work in the movies, but it didn't work, right? And so there we were in love. It was all exciting, but fundamentally the passion, the intimacy, the sex, the fun, the energy of it all, that's not real love. And when I was then married and we started moving through the normal phases of life, and I got a stepson into the process of that. And so he was 8 years old, and of course, as years go by, he gets older, he becomes a teenager. We've got children coming along. Our son was born healthily and very normal, and that was all cool. But then we had 3 miscarriages back to back to back, which was brutal. And for anyone that's been through a miscarriage, it's not something as a man that we get given much information about. Also, as a man, you kind of take on this thought of, well, it was her body, the baby was in her, it's kind of got nothing to do with me, I just need to make sure she's all right, and we'll move on. But like a boxer getting punched in the head, like there's a recovery time, and when the doctor says, yeah, do you know what, miss a period, get going again. Turned out me and my ex were like fertile as flipping, I don't know, rats isn't a very nice picture, but something that produces quickly and easily. Like, we weren't pandas, right? We were
bunnies
not
or something.
Yes, bunnies, that's it, we were bunnies. Get on the case, make a baby, easy peasy, right? And which is horrific if you're struggling to make children, right? But anyway, that was us. And so, boom, pregnant again, another miscarriage. It's like, oh, and of course, each time that happened, she was a bit more crushed, let alone physically, because her body was exhausted, but emotionally and mentally. And when the third one came, and I can picture it vividly, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get her through this? And then straight after, oh no, how am I going to get through this? And that was the first real indication for me of how my mental health was being pinched. And so anyway, my daughter, we got pregnant for the 4th time. My daughter was successfully born, but even that was a roller coaster, and she had to be resuscitated, and my wife got rushed off to theatre, and it was when you turns out you start to understand what something called PTSD is, right? And how it manifests as an illness and a condition, let alone what it does inside of a relationship. It's no surprise that a woman who's gone through all of that is going to struggle. And a couple that have gone through all that is probably going to struggle as well, let alone now I've got a baby in one arm and a toddler in the other arm, and a 12-year-old asking me what the hell's going on as well. So that's where we were. And still, we're a couple that's only in marriage, year 4 of a marriage, and we'd only known each other 6 weeks when we got together. So what ended up happening was that relationship, she then was really quite poorly for about 4 years, and I adored her. I couldn't get my head around how this life that I dreamed of having, take you back to the beginning of my story, this family, this love, this what it is to be a husband, the dad to a couple of kids, and I'm a stepdad as well now, and I've got my own business, and like, hey, I've got it all. And yet it's running through my fingers like sand in an hourglass. And I'm like, trying to catch it, and you can't. And as you try and catch it, you think, well, if I just look after everybody else, if I just make her better, if I just can do enough for the kids, if I can just keep the business going. And I talk in my story about, like, it was Red Bull to stay awake and porn to fall asleep. And, the adrenaline that I now understand that what was going on for me in my emotional, physical and mental state was like a high state of emergency. To keep everything going, to keep myself like in control, and at the same time to fear, like deeply fear losing it all was brutal. Like my dad, like losing his wife, like the woman he loved, and I've got 2 kids and a dead wife. Like, boom, I was like in my dad's shoes, kind of thing. So of course, then we gets to the real dregs ends of our relationship where we're not communicating at all. There's almost no intimacy, and it's deeply distressing and confusing. There's an incredible Tony Robbins video called it's about a double bind, and a double bind is where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And for men that are watching and listening to this, many of you will be in this space where you don't think you can stay a moment longer in the relationship. But everything you stand for, everything you've dreamed of having, every part of your identity says, I can't leave my family. Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? Like, what kind of a man am I? And that's what eats away at a man, is that damned if you do, damned if you don't, double bind. That's that Tony Robbins video. You can look it up, right? But the double bind, where you then in your mind going, what am I going to do about this? I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go that way. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to leave the marriage. I'm going to stay in the marriage. I can't do that. I can't. And that's where men's mental health starts to really take a rapid downturn. And, you know, we don't want to make this all about male suicide, but the rate of male suicide globally for men is horrific. And whilst that headline stat is what people talk about, what everybody needs to consider is there's even more that don't do it, but are thinking about doing it. And so it's really, really important that we look at how relationships break down, that we look at what it takes to create a fresh start, that we look at what it takes to, you know, forgive each other and redefine our relationship, or confidently sit there and go, oh my gosh, turns out we're not very compatible. Right? Instead of spending 4 years, you know, crumbling into versions, like pitiful versions of ourselves, and then going to war over a divorce, why don't we sensibly break up? And I believe and do see that when couples break up before the 3-4 years of, you know, anguish, then they can break up a lot more easily than if they do it at the end of all that heartbreak, break and pain.
All right, real quick, I got to put you on to something that's an absolute game changer for dads. It's called the Dad Log. And if you're a single dad trying to juggle parenting schedules, drama with your ex, and just life in general, this is your secret weapon. Here's the deal. There's a journal built in, so let's say a pickup went sideways, maybe your ex was late, or your kid said something that raised an eyebrow. Boom, log it. Then there's a calendar. Pretty self-explanatory, but no more guessing. Wait, do I have the kids this weekend? It's right there. But the killer feature, my favorite feature, is the contacts. You can save everyone important in your kids' lives, doctors, therapists, coaches, one tap, you've got it. Now this part is wild. So you can upload your parenting plan or court documents, and the app doesn't just store them, it breaks them down in plain English, where it now tells you, this is your parenting schedule, these are the days you have your kids for the holidays, and it just breaks down your parenting plan for you in a very easy way. This thing is built for dads in the trenches, man, and I wish I had this app when I was going through all my stuff. It would have been a game changer. So if you guys are in court now, or even just going through it, you already have your parenting plan and you're having a rough time with your ex, man, I'm telling you, download this app. It will save you so much time and headache. This app is built by dads and made for dads. So check it out, man, on the App Store, the Dad Logs. This app is made for dads, especially going through that struggle. All right, back to the episode. But so even if you're married, you're saying kind of separate or get divorced when in the beginning of before the 4 years of agony and stressing out?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I have a process I do with people, and I give it away, right? If you, it's highvaluemanproject.com/relationship reset. It's about asking each other a series of questions and helping it create a fresh start, a new chapter in your relationship. But it's not rocket science, right? None of this stuff's rocket science. What do you want? What are your hopes and dreams? What are your values? What do you love / like about me? What do you find frustrating and wish I'd like adjust? What did I used to do that you love that I no longer do? What do you think the next chapter of our relationship looks like? That's pretty much the relationship reset. And it's interesting, right? Because it is a conversation, but it's not a conversation. And what I mean by that is you're not looking to respond and debate it. The idea is to truly get the other person. Like, oh, you don't like it when I leave my dirty underwear on the floor in the bedroom every bloody day, right? So
is this like maybe try and change these things before it gets too rough, or?
Well, couples, the concept of marriage, right, is not something that we get taught about that much, especially as young people. It's this whole exciting thing. It's why people spend $50,000 on a bloody wedding, right? People get excited about that. We're getting married. It's going to be brilliant. Yep. Like, no, it's going to be really hard. It's probably going to be shit quite a lot of the time. But like, what's your commitment to each other to see it through? Now, the vows, here we are in 2025. The vows are kind of about 500 years out of date. They're like bollocks, basically. Bullshit in American language. Like, till death do us part. Well, maybe. I mean, like, not if you're shit. Like I'm not staying for years and years of suffering, right? Forsaking all others. Well, that's kind of a given, right? I'm not going to go and run around and cheat on people. But if you're if you're really religious, they get into some crazy stuff like you can't have friends who are female, or people are going to get really jealous if you've got a friendship with someone at work. Like, has to be a solid basis of trust and appreciation and growth inside of ourselves and inside of our vows, inside of what a relationship looks like. I mean, don't even get me started on, is marriage a good deal? Like, it's
right. Yeah.
If it was a business contract, you would look at it and go, I'm not signing that. Like, this is not a good deal. Like, when did you come up with this? This is madness. But we don't think that. We just wander into the church, down the aisle. Here she comes. She looks beautiful. Everyone claps. Sign the piece of paper. What did you just sign? No idea. But it looks good. I had a good day. No, it's a bad deal.
That is such a good way to put it too. That's funny.
So it does need kind of reinventing, really. But we get into another curious level of why is the construct of marriage like that, and what does it do to men? And this is where you start to argue. I don't know enough about the man and like what's going on in society, really. But there is something about marriage which keeps men down. It's like it's not geared for men to thrive. It's not even geared for anyone to thrive. But that's where the opportunity comes for us to redefine this. I mean, there's a curious thing. I don't know much about it, but my cousins in Chicago, they're half English, half Irish, right? Immigrants. And my great aunt went to Chicago when she was about 16. She got put on a boat. Bye. Like 1911 kind of thing. And so she married Irish, and and I've got about 100 cousins in Chicago, right? That's what happens when you're Catholic. Right? But it's awesome. So not all of them do this, but in the Catholic Church traditionally, there's something called Cana. Right now, when you decide to get married, you go and you have this like coaching with the priest, who basically tells you what marriage is really like. Now, I dare say it's pretty religious, right? But as an idea, everybody should do that. Yeah. Before you can go and get married, it's not going to work in Vegas, obviously, but before you can do it, you have to have basically, like, do you know what you're getting into here? Like, have you really put each other through the test? But that relationship reset conversation pretty much is that. If one of the sort of the defining arguments at the end of my marriage was my ex said to me, more like screamed it in my face, "You and your bullshit positive attitude." And you got to like let that settle with you for a second, right? Someone who is positive like me, definitely a glass half full kind of person. Now, you and your bullshit positive attitude. Now, she genuinely meant that. And then we probably had some mad argument after, or it was part of a mad argument. But on reflection, that statement is the clearest indication possible of two people who are fundamentally on different wavelengths. Now, if you've married someone and you come to the realization that you are fundamentally on different wavelengths, then the whole kind of opposite attracts nonsense is utter nonsense. There's so many references in, let alone religion and faith and stoicism, and you can go back thousands of years, Japanese ikigai culture, all of it, right? But even in general literature, the what's it called? Forget the name of the thing. But there's the little Tommy mouse, whatever. One of the mouse lives in the city, and the other one lives in the countryside. And they go and visit each other, and they're like, "This ain't very good here in the countryside." And the city guy goes, "But it's not very good." They don't like it. So you can't be with someone who's fundamentally different than you. But couples don't have the honesty to get down to that and realize it. And that could be a chapter. You could have been perfectly on the same page up until the kids are teenagers, and now you're looking to go back to work, and you suddenly realize, I don't really like anything about you. I don't even think we go to the same place for vacation. We eat the same kind of things. I want to live somewhere cold. I want to live in the sunshine. And that should be okay. Because as creatures, this is the coolest thing about the human body. We're like one of the only animals on the planet that has the free will to wake up one day and become something different. Mm-hmm. And yet we put ourselves inside of a box called a marriage where that's not allowed, or where two people don't give the space for that to happen. So when you relate this back to mental health, that's what happens to people's mental health. That's why arguments happen. Arguments happen inside of relationships because of frustration, because of like, I don't like this and I can't do anything about it, so I'm going to shout at you. You know, it's like, if you'd read up on anger management, a lot of it comes from our own internal frustration and upset. It's not really about the other person.
I think for men too, you know, men don't share their emotions. They don't share their feelings. They kind of bottle it all up inside, and maybe eventually they'll explode. But for the most part, I think in a lot of marriages, the woman might be, you know, yelling, and then eventually the man is fed up with all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but the interesting thing about that, Dan, right? That process you just laid out plays out everywhere, day in, day out. But let's rewind there, right? Who's actually at fault there?
Right. So you're saying the man should probably speak up and say something right
then? He let that happen.
Yeah.
There was a day when he went, okay, I'll just shut up and let you say that.
Yeah.
He didn't listen to her and take it as feedback. Right? Let's use one of the really obvious minor incidents, you know, the dirty washing on the floor, right? He just took that as her nagging at him. Don't worry about it. I'll carry on doing it. And then it just played out over and over again, escalating and becoming maybe bigger, and to the point where she now leaves something on the side in the kitchen every time she makes dinner. And he comes in and goes, why are you leaving that on the side and not putting it in the dishwasher? She's like, I can do what I like. What she's really saying is, because you haven't put your boxer shorts in the wash for the last 3 years. Now, my dad, who I often reference in my coaching, is like, he never set out to be a flipping guru, and he definitely isn't, right? But he is a funny maverick nutter, right? So when we were dicing up the whole divorce, and he's married 4 times, right? And not with the 4th wife. She's long gone. He doesn't like being on his own, right? Well, as I said to him, you don't have to marry her.
Right.
It's okay. You don't have to marry her. But he said to me, you shagged it. Right? Now, if there's any women listeners, they might be triggered a little bit by that line, right? But he's like, and he actually put a few, most of my dad's sentences have a couple of swear words in there as well, right? So well, if I swear a couple of times, I'm sure it's okay, but I'll try not to fill this whole podcast up with swearing, right? So he's like, you shagged it. And that was the point. It's like, as angry as I wanted to be about how my ex was, and it wasn't really anger at her, it was just deep levels of frustration and pain, because all I wanted was this wonderful marriage to work. And so I'm angry and frustrated in her and feeling stuck, and the double bind and the desperate, can I go, can I stay? I mean, one part of my story that I didn't share, right, just to throw in here weirdly, where it all ended was my brother chucked himself in front of a train, Christmas 2014. And 2 weeks after that was the first time we broke up. And then 8 months later was when we finally broke up. But in the realms of what happened and who could be responsible for it, I proposed to her. I asked her out on a date. I kissed her outside a bar in Camden. I basically started all this. And then if you consider that all she's doing is being who she is. Now, you might say, oh, you're not like you were when we got together. Well, maybe not. But actually, take away what we think about it. She's just evolving as she's evolving. She's being who she's being. For us to be annoyed about that, but do nothing about it, like come home, oh, well, she's probably going to be angry and nag at me again. She's probably going to do this. She's probably going to be like running a whole story about how she's going to be. And not at any point taking responsibility for where it all started, when we didn't say anything, how many times we put up with it being the way it was being. And what we really should be saying is, I don't like the way our relationship is working out right now. I don't think that either of us could put up with this, if it carried on for a year or 2 years, maybe a week or 2 more weeks. Let's have a conversation about how we would really like it to be and what we really think we're doing here. And then you both get to talk about it. It's going back to the relationship reset. You both get to talk about it, and you both get to hear where the other person's at. Not to discuss or debate it, just to be really interested in that the other person says, I would much prefer if we did this, or I would really like it if you were like that, or actually, just so you know that my real dream for us is to do this. And you can go, then you can get in your car next day, you can drive to work, you can be in the shower, you can be playing golf. It could just be trickling around in the back of your mind. You're going, oh, wow. I haven't been showing up for her in a way that any of that seems possible. And this is the important thing about human beings, right? Fulfillment is knowing what we want and feeling like we're actively moving towards it. So if we're creating a life for someone where they day in, day out, feeling like they're moving further away from what they dreamed of creating, then it will do their head in. If, on the other hand, we're creating a life where we feel like we're moving towards what we're creating and she feels like she's doing the same, then we've got the space, the opportunity to create an amazing relationship. And it's like, what, is that simple? Well, I kind of think it is. Having done all the studying I've done, having worked with all the people I've worked in, having rebuilt myself, I kind of come to the conclusion that that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. I mean, even hearing it, I mean, it not only would that save a lot of marriages, but it would also save a lot of relationships. Just like you said earlier, it's like, even if you split up, if you do it in the beginning where you guys have already talked and whatever, and you guys are somewhat cordial before the 4 years or whatever amount of years you guys sit there and argue back and forth, hold it all in, you're gonna leave better off friends than enemies.
You would like to think so.
Yeah. Right.
And if it's not, and this is where the high value man principles come in, right? And if it's not, but you as a man honored that side of the deal, and she's flipping mental, right? Because clearly, whilst there are men out there who are utter douchebags, right? The whole, deadbeat dad, right? There are guys that are assholes, right? I'm fine with that. This message from far too many women about how bad men are and we're all misogynist assholes and we're all narcissists and we're all this. No. But are some men like that? Well, absolutely. Now, are all women saints? Like, absolutely not. There are some horrific specimens out there. And what they do is beyond the pale. But that's not all women. And that's this weird thing, Whoa, you're part of, men are narcissists, men are misogynists, men are like, well, no, but some are. Like, if you buy a pit bull terrier and it bites you, not all dogs are bad, right? You just bought a man-eating dog. I mean, like, get with the program, okay? And so that, in essence, is taking responsibility. That is knowing what you signed yourself up for and having the wherewithal to bring it up. And the funny thing is, right, in terms of like divorce, I don't know whether you want to ask some questions and take this in whatever direction you want to go to, but I had to go through so much to get through my divorce. And having gotten through my divorce, I didn't date anyone for 6 years. Now, I know other guys that will shag their way through it, yeah? And that kind of works for them. What you can't do is fall in love and propose, because that's not
right.
Broken people attract broken people, right? So that's fine. But shag your way through it or abstain your way through it. But either way, rebuild yourself and come out whole and complete on the other side, so that you attract, so that you match yourself with a complete human being, because you're a complete human being. And getting over my divorce took so much. And then being in my new relationship now, we've been together 4.5 years. It's nothing like any relationship I've ever had, and I'm steering that. And it is worth a whole conversation itself. But I don't want to jump about too much for you on your podcast. Whether if you want to talk about the divorce a bit more first, or
no, yeah, we can talk about this. I mean, I'm curious on knowing what you know now. If you go back in when you first got divorced, what were some of the first steps that you did, not knowing what you know now?
I was frantic. I was desperate. I was panicky. There's a concept I use in my coaching, right, which is about separating reality and emotions. And every man needs to get this, right? If you can separate out and do it as practically as getting a piece of paper and writing down on one side what's rationally happening and writing down on the other side what's emotionally happening, then you'll gain a great deal of clarity about what's really going on. So, as I just explained, panic, upset, frantic, fear, anger, despair, all parts of the grieving process. And I was like, oh, we can fix this, or let's do marriage counseling, or and then be even more upset when she didn't comply. And then I was seeing my kids, and I'm like, oh, kids, yes. So not, she left the house, I went back to the house, having wonderful time. And then of course comes the Sunday night or the Monday morning, and we're swapping back over, and the deep despair that came from that, and there's a lot of emotional energy, a lot of upset, and all types of emotion: upset, anger, despair, maybe a little bit of hope, but in the early stages, more hopeless than hope. Underneath it all, though, that knowing that actually it was the right thing to do, it was actually the right thing to separate, because I couldn't go on another day with that person the way things were going. And obviously there's different scenarios. If someone's sniffed all the money up their nose, or shagged someone's sister, or there's been a fight and someone's been pushed down the stairs, that's a different set of conditions that we'd need to talk about, like in their own subject. But as a relationship, as a couple that have just deteriorated to the point that they can't go on, this is the experience for the majority of people, and that's what we need to manage better. And the rational side is, we don't get on, we can't make things work, it's impacting the kids, it's impacting my work, I'm not happy, going to bed is a horrific experience because I can't touch you, I don't know what's going on, I barely sleep. It's like all of it, like the rational side is, okay, well, clearly we should break up here, or clearly we should have a period apart, rebuild ourselves, and then talk about it. Like, that's the rational side. Are the kids going to be okay? No, they're going to be ruined forever. No, that's emotional. Are the kids going to be okay? They got a mum, they got a dad, they got a roof over their house, they got food, they go to school. Okay, we can handle this. In terms of getting both parents on the same page, you can't. You can't depend on how the mum is going to feel for your own behaviour. What we have to do as the man is decide how we're going to be, completely separate from how they're showing up, how they're operating. A woman going through divorce is going to be separation is going to be as messed up as the man is. And particularly a woman who's panicking about money, panicking about their situation, let alone all their hopes and dreams about their marriage that's gone out the window. Dan's disappeared. I'm going to carry on though. How do we get them on the same page? Yeah, so you can't. So I have a process with men going through divorce where we send the partner a letter called the Where We're At letter. And going back to this whole rational, emotional side, we literally get clear on where we're at. We're not getting along. We need to separate for the benefit of us all. We have to have somewhere to live. This is what I'm going to do for my work. This is how I see the process going. And you really let them know that this is how you're going to approach it. And you invite them to join you in that journey. Now, if they turn around and say, screw you, arguing about it and saying, okay, right, you want to go to war? Boom. And you tool up and you get ready to go to war. It's not really going to achieve anything. What you have to do as the man is be in a position to rise above it. You have to be willing to say, I'm not going to get drawn down into that battle. Reverend T.D. Jakes says, soar with the eagles, don't fight with the chickens, don't peck with the chickens. And that's an important part of it. You have to decide for yourself how you're going to see this through. And as a divorced dad, as a single dad who's been through it all, one of the toughest things to hear from other men is, it gets better. It won't always be like this. But we have to be conscious enough to see that if that guy's saying that and that guy's saying that, then it's probably true. I probably can get through this. And that's when you start to look then at like, what's it going to take to get better? What's it going to take to repair yourself? Because staying stuck and broken, getting them on side, right? If you can't, then the only thing to do is carry on with your plan, right? Having a plan is obviously a vital part of that, but getting very wise about the divorce process. Too many men have got no clue. Then they're led by their lawyer or solicitor, depending on what country you're in. And then we start to rack up costs, and the whole thing becomes a financial burden. And before you know it, we're going down the plug hole with it all. And the only way to resolve that is to become wise, become as wise as we possibly can about the divorce process. Because becoming embattled, becoming panicked, becoming scared about it all is about as unhelpful as it can get, because that's when you get drawn into the battle. You're this, she says you're this, you say she's that, and you just go back and forward like a pointless war. I know in America the laws, the sort of the financial remedies around divorce are brutal, and so we have to deal with the impact of that, and that's a bigger subject than we're really going to get into now. But getting yourself back on your feet, managing. So this is where the two sides of it come. There's the divorce, which you've got to handle, but then there's everything to do with yourself, making sure that you're fit and strong and healthy, and mentally, emotionally, physically. That's really important. Getting enough sleep, eating right, where your accommodation, like where you're living, and if you are sharing a home, then putting a structure in place where you aren't crossing paths too much, where you do get time with the kids. And all this is dependent on her not being a complete and utter, freak, basically. If she is, then the safest route may indeed be to remove yourself from the situation, which feels awful because then you're abandoning your kids. But what if you're not? What if the bigger picture really is the medium to long term? Fundamentally, kids want both parents in their lives. And whilst it's desperately upsetting not to see your kids, if you can hold your position, like you can get on with work, if you can rebuild yourself, if you can put yourself around your friends and family so you feel loved and supported, that means that you're not crumbling to pieces. Of course, you've got this big hole there, which was your kids, and you've got the stress of dealing with your ex, but it doesn't crush you. And that gives you the strength to move through the divorce. They actually thrive. I don't know if this is done on purpose. I think it is a strategy at some points that it is better for the man to be absolutely crushed and broken, because then they're going to get the outcome, a better outcome. They're going to they can gain more by you being utterly broken. So don't give them that satisfaction. There's a whole conversation to have about how you manage your costs and expenses during a divorce, but it's not worth it. Don't spunk all your money, especially money that you haven't got, and end up in debt for the rest of your life. It's about creating the life where you can thrive and be the best possible dad that you can be. Your kids ultimately will come round. And of course, there'll be a percentage of dads that can say no, they don't. But let's work on the law on that bigger chunk of percentages. Somewhere down the line, your kids are going to find out that you're not the dad she said you are, and that you were there, and that you did fight for them. And then they're going to be turn around and let's say, so if what she said isn't true, what else were lies? What else, where I've missed out on having my dad in my life for all these years because of her. So fundamentally, the mum's relationship is on the line long term, and that should be a great deal of confidence to all men as they go through this. And if you are separated from them, if you can't see your kids, then maintain that diary, record a video, put it up on YouTube in a private list, send it as an email each day to a Gmail account that you created and that will always be there. Like, do what it takes so that when you're, create a little memory box, and each time you go somewhere, put a postcard in there or do something nice. Like, so when your kid comes to you and says, "Where were you?" you're able to say, "I was here." And whilst the years we've missed have been sad, let's look at the future, because we've now got 40 to 50 years together where we can make up for this and have a bloody good time. You're going to be grandparent. You're going to be the dad that's there on their wedding day. You're going to have all this come back to you. So, this is really weird. I'm going to carry on because I think it could be of value to Dan. I don't know whether he's been hit by a bus or what he's doing. I'm going to carry on because we're going to hit the hour in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut this up into two sections now. It's managing your ex and then managing future relationships. So managing your ex, my commitment is that I create a solid co-parenting relationship with my ex. My commitment is to my kids because they don't need the emotional pressure of being caught in the middle. I saw what that does to families. I grew up with a half sister and a half brother. I'd never call them that, but they were from my dad's first marriage and my dad's third marriage. I had my brother, my full brother. Like, I saw what being part of a broken family looks and feels like, and to get along with your ex is so important to your kids. And she's not going to change. Like my dad said, you shagged it. She's not going to change. There's no point getting frustrated about her being a pain in the arse or about her being short-tempered or all the words that you might come up with, even narcissistic, right? And that word gets thrown about far too much. But, people going through a breakup generally behave quite narcissistically. It doesn't mean that someone's a narcissist. And if someone truly is, well, then you can forget about reasoning them because they're always going to be like that. You shagged it. So you've got to work out a way to get along with them. And that requires a great deal of grace, an incredible amount of forgiveness. But it's not, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it because you want your kids to have a good life, and you're doing it because you want yourself to have an easier life. No point getting frustrated and expecting her to be a different way. You chose to have kids with that person, and that's the grounded perspective that will give you a chance of maintaining your sanity. I have to give up and let go of so much. And I dare say she'd say the exact opposite or say that that's a load of bollocks, but it is true. And you're going to have to do that yourself. The greatest testimony to a man who's been through a divorce is to come out with a level of grace and acceptance for his ex, whatever she did. And then, like, what that looks like in terms of future relationships, the failure rate for second marriages or additional marriages is worse than first marriage, right? So why would you do that? Go and get married to someone else and have an equally shit time is utter madness. When you create a new relationship, you need to be really clear in your own mind about what you did that was not effective in the previous relationship. You've got to take full responsibility for how you showed up as the man. Dan and I were speaking about this before we went live. This whole sort of masculine, feminine, and it isn't about red pill stuff and men being in control, but it is about you being in control of your own life. It's not selfish, but it is self-leadership. It's showing up as a confident man, someone who's clear about how he lives his life, about what he's creating, about the relationship of his dreams, about the family that's thriving, connected to his friends and inspired by his network and mentors, spending quality time with his kids, being the shoulders upon which his wife and children thrive. Like, you can only do that when you are a strong, confident man. And maintaining a healthy relationship is like maintaining anything, like running a car, growing a plant, keeping the food in your fridge fresh. You have to recycle it. You have to freshen it up. You have to take control of what's going off, what's not working, what's out of date, and put some new stuff in there. Letting your partner know that you're strong, that you're desirable, that you're attractive. Like, there's a phrase, I think it was Rollo Tomassi I first heard it from, called competition anxiety. Like, if you're not giving your ex the idea that some other woman might come and grab you if she doesn't have you, then you're going to lose a great deal of respect, and the intimacy and passion in your relationship is going to drain. And when the intimacy and passion, let alone fun and connectiveness in your relationship disappears, well, then you're doomed. You're into the downward spiral. It is a low value existence. So you have to bring it. You have to bring it. Your relationship and the happiness in your relationship is on you. And if over and over again you do this, but it's still not working, she's still a complete and utter pain in the arse, then you get the opportunity to say, what's going on for you? What does this look like in the medium to long term? Because if it stays like this, I think we're done, and there's no biggie, but I just think we're done. Then she gets the opportunity to say, "I know that's not what I want. I do want to work on this. I am going to, this is what I'm going to do for myself." Okay, great. Well, then let's reconvene in 3 months' time on this and see where we're at. So it is a completely different perspective on relationship and marriage and what is healthy and what is normal. But the alternative, what we see around the world, what we see in families and friends around us, is this misery, this argument, this depression, this sorrow, frustration, struggle. And that's not what it's about. What the world needs is men to thrive, to be confident in their own lives, who they are, how they're showing up, being the man they want to be, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. And it's magical. You get to say, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing huffing. We're not doing rolling eyes. We're not doing, you think that I'm doing this when I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. We're doing straight talk. We're doing open and honest. We're keeping it in the moment. We're planning for fun. We're planning sex nights, passion, intimacy. We are feeding into this relationship so that we can actually enjoy our life together. And the reason I got that so wrong in the past was it was all about doing enough for her so that she would love me, doing enough so that our relationship would stay healthy, always being like, if I just do more, then things will get better. But if things don't get better and you've made that woman your whole life, well, then guess what? You're going to crumble, because if your whole life is based upon that relationship and the relationship is taken away, then you've got nothing. Then you are going to crumble and fall. And that's why so many men are struggling. And we can't be in that place. So I'm going to get hold of Dan somehow, make sure that he hasn't been hit by lightning or something. I dare say that he'll turn this into the remainder of the podcast. I hope it's been of value. If you have any interest in finding out more about my work inside the High Value Man Project, whether that's in the Inner Circle, our group program, whether it's working one-on-one with me in High Value Man Elite, these are all the options that I hold available. You can get some free resources by going to highvaluemanproject.com/group. And that will give you instant access to our base camp, which is my free community. It's off of Facebook, so you can be happy and comfortable in there. And then you can watch out for the live workshops we run on relationship reset, on rebuilding after divorce, and on the High Value Man checklist. They're the three things that we run regularly, feeding into our longer programs. It's been my absolute pleasure to connect with you. Make sure you tune in to all we do. I do have a podcast myself. highvaluemanproject.com/podcast will get you there. But all in all, you can find me at Jonnie Jensen and High Value Man Project, and I'll get you set up. Dan, thanks so much for having me. I'm sure we'll fix up whatever this technical glitch was, and I'll see you either on the next episode of the Dan's show or even over at High Value Man Project. Take it easy.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Halfway through, my feed cut out, and Jonnie kept it going. So shout out to Jonnie. Thank you so much, man. You are a rock star. Your energy is absolutely on fire, and you dropped a lot of knowledge. So thank you again. This was a great episode. I apologize for everybody. My feed went out, but Jonnie kept it rolling. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And guys, don't forget to check out the Dad Log. It's only on the App Store for iPhones or Apple, and it really is a game changer. Check it out. I think it's like $6.99 one-time purchase, but it'll really help you guys out. So check it out on the App Store. The Dad Log.
You can hold me down.